Some sad news to pass along from baseball. Bob Uecker, one of the game's great broadcasters and great personalities, died at the age of 90. Known somewhat sarcastically as Mr. Baseball, a nickname given to him by Johnny Carson, Uecker spent more than 5 decades as the radio voice of the Milwaukee Brewers. That came after a brief big league career spanning 6 seasons, which included a World Series title with the 1964 St. Louis Cardinals. Uecker turned his charisma and self-deprecating charm into an acting career, with his notable credits as broadcaster Harry Doyle in Major League and as George Owens on the ABC sitcom Mr. Belvedere. He was inducted into the Baseball Hall of Fame in 2003. Now, to continue that conversation on Uecker and honor his life and the legacy he leaves behind, we bring in our Will Middlebrooks now. And Will, just a sad day in baseball, a sad day for the sports world. What did Uecker mean to the sport and the game of baseball?
Well, I mean, he was the voice of the Brewers, but I mean, he impacted so many people on so many levels all around baseball, not just within Milwaukee. But I mean, just looking at his overall story, it was cool to follow and cool to go back and read about the history of who he was. I mean, he's born in Milwaukee in 1934, so hometown kid. He signed with the team in 1956, grinded through the minor leagues, eventually made it to the big leagues in '62 with the Milwaukee Braves at the time, and then went on to be the voice of the radio there. And in 1971, when he retired as being a player. But on a personal level, Zach, I played for the Brewers in 2016. I started the year in spring training with them on a minor league deal, trying to make the club, and struck up a relationship with him in spring training down in Arizona, and just loved his humor. I loved how lightly he took the game when everyone is taking it so serious, especially me when I was trying to regain footing in my baseball career, trying to get back to the major leagues. I didn't make the team out of spring training, stayed in touch with him, eventually got called up on July 4th. To the team there. I met the team in Washington. He was the first one to meet me in the clubhouse, and we always talked about baseball at such a deep level, and he always said, "Hey, you're gonna make a great broadcaster one day." And I'm thinking, yeah, right, man. Like I'm either gonna play till I'm 40 or I'm gonna coach till I'm 70. There's no way I'm gonna be in the broadcast booth, and here I am. And we went to Milwaukee a couple of years ago with the Red Sox to do the broadcast, and he was waiting for me when I walked in the building and just said, "I told you so." It was really cool.
What do you think that says about him from the personal touch, the human touch? Because of course there is the game, but there's so much more to it from the personality standpoint and just everything that he added to just bring life to things.
Yeah, and what you saw from him and heard from him when you watch games and listen to his personality, whether you're watching a Brewers game, whether you were watching the Major League movie and seeing his humor, that was the real him all the time. It was always like he was always on. And he said, "It's not like I have to turn it on and off. It's just who I am." He's like, "I wasn't a good ball player. I was just funny," And he had all these good lines. And we were talking off camera, Zach, and I said he always told me I always knew my baseball career was over when my baseball card came out the last year and it didn't have a picture on it. He always had all these lines. That people remember him by, and he was a special guy. He impacted baseball in so many ways, and he impacted so many lives within baseball and around baseball. He was a really special guy.
Yeah, he had the commercial in 1984, the Miller Lite front row commercial that I just went back and watched that on YouTube as we played this right here. And just the humor that you even mentioned that you alluded to, that really allowed him to become a star outside of the game of baseball. Like, to have a figure like this that you see just starring all across the TV, like how crazy and how great is that?
I think it's really rare that someone can be the self-deprecating humor, which you mentioned in the open of this segment, was what made him who he was, which he didn't take things too serious. Everything was a joke, everything was fun, and that rubs off on everybody around you. And it worked on me. It made me loosen up a lot. And that was this, I remember Ryan Braun giving it to him. Like, Ryan would always rag him in a joking way about how awful of a baseball player he was. And, I think it was 1967, he only played 59 games, and he led baseball in pass balls. Think about that for a minute. But now, to his defense, he would say, I always caught Phil Niekro, the legendary knuckleballer. So it's really hard to catch a knuckleballer. 59 games played. He led all of baseball And he always said, the best way to catch a knuckleball is wait for it to stop rolling and pick it up.
That self-deprecating, I think that people could just appreciate that, because it feels like we don't get that realness on a day-to-day basis from everyone, of the ability to say, like, okay, I'm really not the greatest thing ever, and you can have fun with it and you can be light. When you look at the game of baseball today and you look at the broadcast booths all across the country, does it feel like we've maybe lost some of that now, of course, in losing Uecker, and just the ability to be light with the game and to just have fun and to laugh at it and to enjoy and tell stories in that manner?
I think there's a good mix of it. I mean, I think the broadcasting world has gotten a little bit younger. Hopefully I bring the average age down a little bit, but it's, the game has evolved a lot, and a lot of the older generation of broadcasters don't necessarily love the change in the game, which is understood. They grew up a certain way. They had most of their careers broadcasting baseball in a certain manner and watching a certain game. And now there's tons of new rules. The game's played differently. Pitchers only go 4 or 5 innings, and that drives these older guys crazy, but that's just how it is. But he adapted and he changed, and he said, look, it's baseball, it's fun. The rules are different. The game's played completely different than what I'm accustomed to, but it's still a lot of fun. I still get to show up at the ballpark, go hang out with the guys in the clubhouse during BP. I get to take the flights with them. He could call them, I get to go on the show flights, stay in the nice hotels with these guys. And he always said, I'm gonna do this as long as I'm alive. And he did. He did it up until last year. And he was just, anybody who was around him was lucky to be around him. You likely learned something, and you for sure got a good laugh.
Yeah, did it for a very long time and a very high level at that. Since you were able to be around him and spend time with him, what's a funny thing, a funny story, something that he told you that you can share, just to show off who he was?
Well, we would always make him be Harry Doyle in the clubhouse, because that's who he was in the Major League movies. We wanted him in that character, which was pretty much the real him. That was like 90% of him. But oh man, you're putting me on the spot. I love when him and Ryan Braun would get into it all the time, and it was just pure cinema. We would just sit back and just watch these guys go at it, and they would just rag each other. Now you got me racking my mind, right? My favorite quotes from the Major League movies, right? So obviously you got the it's a bit outside. You have some I probably can't say on here. I think my favorite one was when, you got me thinking, I don't want to mess this up. So Pedro Serrano hits a ball, he gets tagged out, and he goes, oh, it's a tough loss for Cleveland as Pedro Serrano doubles off a pigeon. He's tagged out at second base, administering CPR as a tying run could not score. Like stuff like that. Like, you just don't hear things like that in baseball. But his voice and his act was just so perfect to bring humor to baseball. And it was a daily basis, and I was lucky to be around him for one season.
Yeah, we were just watching some of the clips, the best moments from the movie in the control room right before we came up with this segment, just to kind of set the tone and really show you who Bob Uecker is and was as a man. Will Middlebrooks, thank you so much. Certainly appreciate it as baseball loses a great one today. Bob Uecker, the Hall of Famer and the voice of the Milwaukee Brewers, was 90 years old. We'll have more HQ after this.